Okay, good morning, everybody. Really delighted to be able to join you here today. My name is John Kimmance. I'm MD of Ordnance Survey's National Mapping Services, which is one of 3 business units that Ordnance Survey has, focusing very much on different parts of the market. So National Mapping Services, or NMS, is focused primarily on the public sector and delivering both content and services that enable them to deliver outcomes for the citizen. But as a result of doing that, we also create content that is of use to the wider commercial market, and again make sure that the data and services are available to the commercial market too. The second business unit within Ordnance Survey is Geospatial Solutions, which is very much focused on the commercial markets and in particular on the international markets, which is an important part of Ordnance Survey's strategy moving forward. And then the third area is our consumer division, very much focusing on the consumer, both from a paper map perspective, but increasingly from an online and an e-commerce perspective. So today, however, I'm going to be providing an overview for our national mapping services and how authoritative data is supporting the public sector and commercial sector and the outcomes that our customers and users in those markets are seeking to achieve. So in terms of the national mapping services, the current arrangement that we have, which is probably described, a lot of people would refer to it as the public task, has been contractualized over the last few months in a new agreement that Ordnance Survey has got with government, which is called the PSGA, or the Public Sector Geospatial Agreement. And it's much more than just the provider of data and with a few technical and relationship support around it. It actually is much more all-encompassing than previous arrangements that we've had. So yes, it does cover data provision, but that's data provision both from the purpose of a product, but also through increasingly the use of APIs. And as time moves forward, we're going to be moving from a fairly sort of product-centric view of the world to a much more data-centric view of the world, where actually, customers can actually come in and sort of help themselves to the elements of data that they need, rather than having that pre-configured in a product sense. The agreement also covers leadership and representation, particularly internationally. So the UK has got various obligations internationally around standards, around geospatial data, both at the UN and within Europe. And in many of those, Ordnance Survey acts as one of the technical experts that represents the UK in those arenas. I've already mentioned the fact that we have previously provided technical and customer support to the public sector customers, but actually that's been beefed up as part of the PSGA. It's really, really important that government is seen to be getting the value out of the agreement, and actually that sort of not just hand-holding, but actually really helping end markets benefit from the public sector use is a key component. And therefore that also means that the infrastructure needs to support the applications, needs to be maintained, the APIs need to be relevant, they need to be providing discoverability, accessibility, usability, and that's important not just the public sector but also to the wider commercial market as well. So both the content and the services are available to the commercial markets too, and that's an important component of the national mapping services. In terms of who we're supporting, under the PSGA, there are over 5,500 organisations that are members of the PSGA, and they help deliver a whole range of benefits, be it from blue lights to street lights, be it from planning to refuse collection, and that is mirrored within the commercial sector as well. So that data, that authoritative data, is really relied on in a number of other use cases, be it providing a really accurate and more effective insurance quote, or it's even supporting the switching of a consumer from one utility provider to another utility provider. And what's really important for us is, and particularly for our customers, is to make sure that Ordnance Survey's data is fit for purpose, authoritative, accurate, maintained, and available in order to support all those use cases. And in order to make sure that is the case, we have got a range of data principles which are really important and that which we need to adopt. So I guess the first one of those is that, you know, it needs to meet our customers' needs. And so we do a lot of work around user insight, market insight, in order to try and ensure that the product and the service that we offer best meets that need. When we deliver that to the market, we're making sure that actually we're caring for that data. So we're making sure it's maintained, the quality of it remains, and that if any changes need to happen, that we make those changes. We need to make sure it's secure and it's protected, to make sure it doesn't get tampered with, and that it is what it says on the tin when it actually gets to yourselves. We need to make sure it's governed and managed in an effective and a transparent way, so that people can understand how and when changes are made. And as a result of all of that, that is one of the things that drives it being authoritative. So we need to make sure that we continue to make that the case. And therefore, once we've got that authoritative data, then it's really important it's then used. And therefore, other principles are making sure it's easy to find, making sure it's accessible, making sure it's easy to maintain. And therefore, we've got a sense of standards and identifiers and etc. that actually are really important to make sure that that all comes true. But as we particularly established over the last 6 months or so, particularly during COVID, is that the world doesn't stand still, and in some cases it moves very, very rapidly. So what's really, really important to us is that we're also horizon scanning, and we're making sure that in a dynamic world with changing market demands, be they being driven by social changes, technical or even environmental changes, that we're actually continuing to meet the needs of the customers as we move forward. So I think that's a really important component of our principles. So in terms of how our customers are benefiting from the PSGA, and they're the customers not just from the public sector perspective, but also commercial as well, is that first of all, there is a provision of new and richer data. So we've got some additional products that have come out, such as address-based core. We've got some additional attributes to products that are being developed as we move forward, such as building orientation, land use, etc. We're providing greater access to data and new access to data to enable developers to design products and services. We're making it easier for those interfaces to work with whoever's interfacing with them, be it public or commercial. And actually, as a result of that, we're kind of lowering the cost to access, we're removing the barriers to the use, and hopefully then creating a greater environment by which that authoritative data can be consumed and providing value into the wider market. And that includes new freedoms to share around licensing. Obviously, licensing is a really important component of Ordnance Survey's business model. You know, we need to create income coming in order to invest and in ensuring that that authoritative data continues to be available. And therefore, licensing is an important component to make sure that we both retain the ability to generate that commercial income, but also try and maximise the use of the data within the wider market. Okay, so since in the first 6 months of the PSGA, actually quite a lot's been delivered, and particularly a lot of this was delivered in the beginning of July. So first of all, we've delivered new platforms and delivery methods in the form of the data hub and a range of new APIs. We've enabled new freedoms to share in the form of property exemptions, etc., and also new open data. So OS open UPRNs, unique product property reference numbers, the USRNs, unique street reference numbers, Ordnance Survey's identifier, which is the TOID, and also provided a whole range of APIs with unlimited free use for developers, and indeed a threshold in order to be able to use premium data within that as well. So as part of that, we have made some changes to our premium data. So we've actually repriced a number of the premium products. As I said, we've also given the free commercial use up to a threshold for that. We've introduced new online access for self-serve and the ability to pay online payments for the use of the data. We provided a whole load of these products available for free at the point of use within the public sector. And as I said, we've also delivered some new products as well in the form of address-based core. And all these are really, really important in terms of greater value generation and outcome focus across the whole of the public sector. So to support that, we've also beefed up our technical support. We're providing now more regional-based technical support. So we're trying to make sure that we're supporting the government's levelling up agenda, with making sure we've got support more evenly across GB. We've released a whole load of literally hundreds of millions of features under OGL terms. We've actually, notwithstanding the fact that the challenges a number of us have faced over the last 6 months due to COVID, we've actually made more changes within OS Mastermap in the first 6 months of this year than we did in the first 6 months of last year, which is actually incredible, really. And we've also supported a whole range of organisations in their response to COVID. So we've issued new COVID licenses, which enabled greater access to a greater range of data and more liberal licensing terms to support COVID. And in support of that, we've worked with a range of third parties, such as PointX in terms of access to points of interest data, and people like Adena to support the Digimap for schools, providing greater access to schools when they're providing online services, etc. So it's been a really, really busy first 6 months of the PSGA, but really delighted that we've been able to support, particularly during these difficult times of COVID. And then when we look at some of the other statistics around some of this online world we've entered now, is that the data hub is going to be really important moving forward. And it's fantastic to see that we've already got, you know, way over 2,000 registered users for Data Hub, of which nearly 2,000 are new to Ordnance Survey, and we're seeing 100% month-on-month increase in the use of the APIs. So we're only 3 months in, and this is definitely going to be the window to getting access to Ordnance Survey data as we move forward. In terms of customer-led improvements, I highlighted already that we play great store in actually really listening and understanding to what the market needs are and what the needs are of our users. And so in the run up to the PSGA being agreed, we engaged with a huge number of organisations, both public and commercial organisations, to help define what those data requirements should be, specifically focusing around a number of use cases. And actually, as a result of that, that's helped deliver us a range of, well, first of all, a timeline of deliverables, which I'll share in a second, but also enabled us to deliver those things that I've just articulated just now. And actually, that has been received really, really well. I mean, be it from use of the Data Hub in terms of the Times, Sunday Times, indicating that it's much more intuitive. It's enabled them to discover data that they didn't know existed. Be it the use of new and exciting services, such as that delivered by Property Data, or be it the use of some of the new products that we delivered, such as address-based core. You know, Sunderland Council describing it as easy to use, simple, really good for integration into theirs and other systems. In support of COVID and some of the analytics associated with the data, NHS England have been really supportive of the work we've been doing, and certainly from a GDS perspective, Government Digital Service, you know, they're fairly convinced that the use of OS Places API, and in particular in things like track and trace, have really actually almost certainly saved lives. So, you know, that makes us proud, and you know, I think actually reinforces the fact and the importance of authoritative data. Those Data Hub APIs are also used in a commercial sense as well by a number of organisations. So those feedback from those organisations includes, you know, the fact that the data is accurate, it's easy to use, it's got access to greater scale, it's simple. Those interfaces are simple. The access and the pricing algorithms make it affordable. And it's a fantastic one-stop shop in terms of a single source of the truth. So, you know, bearing in mind we're only 3 months in, I mean, I think we're really delighted by the way in which this has been received within the market. And then I'll come on to my last slide really, which is around what next. So this slide gives a timeline of what has been delivered, and as you can see, there was a huge amount of delivery in July 2020. But as we move forward, we are delivering additional things as part of the PSGA. So we've at the end of September had the ability to purchase using online card purchases. We've got the ability to get address-based call from tiles rather than national sets coming out in October. As we move forward into January, the data hub with the access will be made much more available to the wider public sector. At the moment, it's really only available to the commercial sector, apart from the open data products, which everybody can access. And then as we move forward to the tail end of this current financial year, we'll be bringing in data in from Scotland in terms of USRNs into the highways products. And then as we move forward into tail end of next year and the year after, we will have a range of new data sets becoming available. That will include things like improved currency of buildings and the structures being fully delivered as part of the data configuration. And as I mentioned earlier on, also this introduction of the pick and mix through the National Geospatial database, which I guess today is revealed in terms of products, but tomorrow will be probably more akin to sort of a bucket of data. You can come in and pick the relevant bits you want. So really excited about the journey we've just started. I'm really excited to be with you here today at this conference. I'm really excited that, from our position of providing authoritative data, really excited that the opportunity that gives, not just for the public sector, but also for the commercial sector too. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John. John will just join me on stage in a couple seconds, and then we'll just run into a question and answer session. Thanks very much for that, John. Great presentation.
Thank you.
So yeah, just got a couple questions for you before everyone dives into, well, not literally dives into, but goes and grabs a tea or a coffee. So today we've been talking about authoritative data. Just wondering whether you can just mention a couple of examples about how public sector organisations are using OS's authoritative data to underpin their own authoritative data.
Yes, yeah, actually there's quite a few. So obviously under the PSGA, there's over 5,500 organisations that have got access to a whole plethora of data and support, as I've described in the presentation. But a number of those, they themselves are creating, making available authoritative data to the market. And I guess some of the most obvious ones, I guess, linked to the presentation we heard from Europe as well, is Land Registry, which is our sort of cadastral equivalent in this country. And Land Registry create the sort of authoritative data of the ownership of land and property within England and Wales. And in order to do that, they utilise Ordnance Survey topographic data as a sort of underpinning framework to support that. So that's a really good example of creating authoritative data upon other authoritative data. I guess the other examples are Rural Payments Agency, who really use Ordnance Survey's data to underpin the payment of the farm grants, and they create their own land system, which again takes in authoritative data from a range of sources, including Ordnance Survey, and then creates their own authoritative source, which is the one that's used for paying the what it is, £2.5–3 billion worth of farm grants that are paid every year. So that's another example. We heard earlier on about how censuses and things are being impacted during this time of COVID, but Office of National Statistics, our census organisation, seems to be really focused and been able to deliver the census next year as planned. And of course, the census is very much uses authoritative data. I mean, in two ways, really. It uses it to help plan and manage the operations, particularly where they've got field activities, but also translating the statistics into the authoritative geographies through which people can recognise and then actually create those analytics on top of. So I guess there's sort of three examples of ongoing use of authoritative data. What we've also found, though, in the last few months is that the use of data has really accelerated, particularly in the use of COVID. So even sort of what's called sort of Mickey Mouse authoritative data, which is the map that maybe Boris Johnson uses to make a decision, that still needs to be based upon the authority has the boundaries in the right place, the geography's in the right place, those kind of things. So I've been supporting that and the work in the Joint Biosecurity Centre, right the way down to much more detailed operational activity around track and trace. We've heard about that earlier on as well. But, something like the postcode provides a certain level of geography, but actually a property address gives you much greater granularity, particularly when you're trying to track and manage infection.
Wow. Well, since you've been answering that question, John, we've got quite a few questions. It's like buses; they all come at once. So what I'm going to do, just conscious of time, I'm going to pick one question. But I think you're around. Are you around for the rest of the?
I am.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So please do ping you a message in the chat box, John. I'm sure you can pick up some discussions after this. After your presentation. So let's go with the core skills. So what core skills are leading to these new deliverables? Let's just make sure I ask the right question. What core GR skills are leading to these new deliverables in terms of the products and services that OSGB are hoping to deliver in the coming months and years?
Okay, so I'd say it's the core skills are the obvious ones that we in the industry would recognise. So it's understanding data, understanding geography. But I guess what I would say is that you've got to supplement that with what I would call more commercial skills. It's understanding actually what the user needs are, being able to translate those into a requirement and actually getting many different requirements from different market sectors. And then turn those requirements into detailed specifications, which then need to be then productionized and actually, turned into the kind of things which has been seen in your technical demonstration. How you capture data, verify the data, create that authoritative flow so that when it hits the market, people can absolutely rely on it. So actually, I guess in summary, it's the technical geospatial data that we all know and love. But you have to have a whole load of business, commercial, marketing, communication expertise as well in order to make the whole thing successful and ensure that the end market gets the value out of that data you've created.
Great. I'm just conscious, like I say, I'm sure people want to go and grab a tea and coffee, but as you're around for the rest of the morning, then feel free, everyone, to drop John a line in the chat box, and I'm sure he'd be delighted to have a follow-up conversation with you. So what we'll do now, I'd just like to kind of thank Dan